Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get firsthand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome to another K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. By the way, K-Cups come in 3 sizes, single, double, and triple shots, or roughly 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes in length. So if you don't have time to throw back an entire caffeinated career conversation, these K-Cup mini episodes of T4C can give you a quick caffeinated fix, whether you're on the go or you only have a few minutes to binge. So grab your mug and take a chug, because it's time for a caffeinated career double shot K-Cup with my guest, Glenn Leibowitz. One of the many things that you have gotten done over the years in your role heading communications and reputation at McKinsey Greater China is to produce McKinsey's first podcast. It was for the entire firm, and it was McKinsey on China. Back in 2011, you started it. It's been downloaded millions of times. And I'm guessing, Glenn, that is what influenced your decision to start your own wonderful podcast, Right with Impact, and of course, then the Right with Impact Academy. I want to ask you, Glenn, because you have turned the microphone around on so many people, myself included, on your Right with Impact podcast about how to write well. What is your best advice that you would offer our listeners right now about how they can write well? What are some of your tips and insights that you would say are kind of at the very top?
I would say there are a few things. One is to read as much as you can. And when you read, become more meta about it. What I mean by that is be more conscious of what you're reading and how you're reading, and the impact, the effect it has on you. And then take a sentence or 2 or 10 and look very closely at how the author, the writer has constructed those sentences. So slow down. Don't read so fast anymore. Read slow, read slowly, and analyze other people's writing, because there's a lot of good writing out there, and a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is free on the internet. So go to the good sources of writing and read. So that's number 1. Number 2.
I have to interrupt. What are your favorites in terms of sources where they can find good writing, in addition to, of course, subscribing to your newsletter and going to Right with Impact Academy?
Right. There's just so many. And I could just spend a long time just telling you where to go. I mean, obviously, I love to download books on my Kindle app from Amazon. But in terms of free sources, of course, there's medium.com, but actually Substack is really taking off. Substack is attracting some of the best writers I know. And it's a writing platform. And, you can sign up for free. And a lot of them also have paid subscriber options, and you can get more content if you pay. But a lot of the content there is free, and you get it delivered directly into your inbox. So I would suggest trying out Substack. It's a fairly new platform, relatively newer, but it's exploding. It's attracting really top-notch writers, and I'm very proud to now be on Substack. Right with Impact Academy is on Substack. It's hosted on Substack, partly for that reason. And again, I could go on and on about sources that you can turn to for free, excellent sources of writing, but definitely read a lot.
Great. And I interrupted you in mid-flow. You had a couple other suggestions you were going to make.
Right. So the other suggestion, and this is something that I hear from everybody that I interview, and it sounds obvious, but it is something that can be tough for a lot of people. And I completely empathize with this, is that you have to write. And so just pick a platform. It could be LinkedIn. And I highly recommend, writing on LinkedIn. It could be Medium. It could be Substack. I highly recommend Substack. Substack is just exploding, like I said. Or it could be your own WordPress blog, but write something and try to be consistent about it. So I had a mentor 7 years ago who gave me that advice. He said he knew I wanted to write, but I wasn't writing. I didn't even start. I was trying to think about, I was struggling, which WordPress theme should I purchase that looks nice? He said, it doesn't matter. Just write something every week on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was just opening up its blogging platform for the very first time. And he said, write something every week. It doesn't matter how you feel or what you feel. Just do it, Glenn. And I took his advice. This is in April of 2014, a little over 7 years ago. And I consistently wrote one article, a short article every week. I'd sit down at the kitchen table Thursday night or whenever, and I would just hit publish, not expecting anyone to read it or care about it. And just somehow I built an audience over a period of time, a period of years. So, and I learned how to write that way. I learned, how to share my ideas and my thoughts with the world. And I highly recommend people do that. The technology is there. It's free. The platforms are all free. LinkedIn's free. Substack's free. Medium is free. WordPress is free. And, expect to not be great initially. Expect to learn. Expect to make mistakes. You can always delete your articles if for some reason you feel terribly embarrassed or you made a mistake. I've deleted a couple, not many, but I've deleted a couple articles that I just didn't want up anymore. I've left most of my articles up on LinkedIn. In fact, I actually did my very first inventory of my LinkedIn articles all the way back to 2014. And I have the number of views and likes on those very first articles. And I can tell you it was very few, very, very few. But, over time, I built up, an audience on LinkedIn and elsewhere. And I did it through consistency and practice. And I still feel like I'm learning. And I still feel like I have to sort of kick myself in the butt to sort of, write and keep writing. I have to motivate myself to do that. But I do that by reading and getting inspired by other people, by talking to amazing people like Andrea and my guests on my podcast. I use my podcast to get ideas and inspiration that I can then use to write about. So reading gives you the inspiration that you need and the ideas, and also the methodologies, right? And then writing just helps you put it into practice.
Thanks for tuning in to this K-Cup mini episode of Time for Coffee. If you want to listen to our entire caffeinated career conversation, please check out the show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.